So thank you again for joining us. Today's topic, how to make smart technology purchases at your agency. So I'll give a little disclaimer for starters. Typically in webinars, we're not giving a lot of product recommendations, but that's kind of what this one's all about. We want to help you decide what technology purchases are going to make sense for your agency. A lot of our recommendations are not things that we sell. It's things that we've used over time for ourselves, feel comfortable with how well they work, and thus are able to recommend them to agencies confidently. So with that said, let's get started for you. So one of the big themes that we wanted to try to get across is making purchases that are business versus consumer grade. Most of the stuff that we have at agencies now, there's lots of different levels of things. Let's just say we're talking about PCs. You can go to a PC store and get PCs for the same price that you can get business PCs. They're not necessarily all made the same. So we're going to talk about all facets of what you might need at an agency and compare business versus consumer grade. Give you some recommendations on features and functions that you're going to get out of the business grade stuff. So starting with a phone system, this is probably one of the most important pieces that an agency has, yet we find that it's one of the least considered pieces when it comes to actually making a valuable purchase for the agency with production in mind. And we see a few different things out there as options. One that we're seeing a lot lately is phone vendors just throwing in a free hosted phone system whenever you get phone line service through them. Typically you get what you pay for. And that's not to say that they're not going to work, but usually you're getting minimal features, lower reliability, things like that. There's also cloud-hosted phone systems. In today's day and age, with everything talking about moving to the cloud, this is something that my agencies should consider. Keep in mind, with anything online, you do need to make sure you have super stable internet, and we recommend multiple internet connections. If you are going to be looking at a cloud-hosted phone system or an on-premise phone system, we do have a strong product recommendation for you. Again, that's more about what the agency is comfortable with and what direction you want to go in if you're looking to keep things online or move to the cloud. We feel that moving to the cloud does make sense, except phone systems may be a little immature as far as that goes. There's still lots of on-premise systems that are available as well. Most providers are still recommending these, even though most provider solutions do have an in-house versus a cloud component. So when it comes to on-premise systems, usually you have more control, more features, and then greater reliability because you're not relying on internet. We do still recommend either on-premise or cloud-hosted, definitely not a free one. And for either system, we strongly recommend everybody consider Digium. They make a system called SwitchVox. They've been doing the phone systems based on networking or that thing called VoIP or voice over IP longer than anybody. They actually invented it. We've been using their system for a long time with great success, and we've seen agencies doing the same. So when it comes to your firewall, this is what separates the agency and the internet. And of course, on the internet, there's lots of bad people, right? So as far as firewalls go, our first recommendation is let's make sure you're not using anything that comes from your internet provider. Most of them do include a box for you, if you will, and some of them even call it a firewall. Most still call it a router or a modem. They do have some firewall functions built in, but just not all that an agency would need to run comfortably and confidently. And also we recommend don't go to a store and buy one. What you're going to get at a store, again, is a lot of consumer grade products. They lack a lot of the business class features that you would want in a powerful firewall for the agency. Things like content filtering, that's web blocking. Ability to do reporting on what people are doing. Again, a lot of agencies don't like that and don't want to be Big Brother. You can choose to do that or not. Traffic shaping, that's where you can tell certain things to go slower. Say again, you don't want to be Big Brother and block Facebook or access to streaming media or streaming music. You can slow them down at least so they're not using up all your internet speed or bandwidth. They do things called web caching to make browsing faster. But the biggest thing is they're usually built on much more powerful hardware. These boxes are little computers. So when you go to a store and you get one for $100, you're basically getting a little $100 computer to run your whole business's internet operations through. And again, if you're on the cloud, it's even more important. You want a business class unit that's got maintenance contracts as well, which keeps you upgraded and gives you quick support. And we do recommend a Cisco Meraki. As far as wireless goes, again, same rule, not from an internet provider, not from a store, because you're not going to get those business class features. Now, we hear all the time that Comcast and other providers are advertising online their Business Pro Wi-Fi and things like that. That's great for a starter business, maybe sometimes good for stores. But as far as, again, getting the real business class features in your office, you're not going to get those from either one of these places. So you want your own wireless. The business class wireless is going to let you do multiple wireless networks. Again, the Comcast advertises that they can do that as well, but they're just not as secure. They don't give you the control, and they also are still limited in what they can do and provide. So the business class will let you do your private wireless, plus a separate guest wireless if you require one. Some companies need 3 or 4 different wireless, and the business class can usually do those, where the others can usually do 1 or 2. You can do traffic shaping here as well, telling it to, maybe give full speed for your internal users, but slow your guests down so they can still work and get to websites, but not slow your whole network down. You can set bandwidth caps and limits. You can do something called meshing. And what that is you can set up multiple wireless throughout your office and have them work as one wireless network. Where again, with most consumer grade wireless, you can buy what's called an extender, but you're actually putting in at that time multiple different wireless, and you need to configure your equipment to work with multiple wireless. It won't work as one smooth setup as you transition to different parts of the office. They'll also do things called PoE, or Power over Ethernet, basically a fancy computer networking term for they don't have to be plugged into the wall plug to get power. Why is that important? Well, we think image is just as important part of the sales process as anything. So when you've got clients coming into your office, it's really not all that nice looking to have power cords hanging down the wall from your wireless to plug it in. So they'll actually have the power go over the Ethernet cord, and you can hang the wireless box, nice and aesthetically pleasing up on the wall high up with no cables shown at all. Great for wireless in public areas. And again, the ability to have maintenance contracts to get updates and new features and support on those products. So again, for firewall and wireless, we strongly recommend Cisco Meraki products. Not giving model numbers because there are so many different models. In our general recommendation as far as the model number is look at the specs that they say is good for the amount of users and go for the next model higher. It really goes for any kind of recommendation that we show. Gives you room to grow, and then a little breathing room as well. For network switches, everybody has these in their office. Again, they're kind of like the phone systems, maybe not a highly considered thing when we're talking about upgrading our technology, but eventually it does have to happen. These things do have a finite shelf life. They usually last longer than anything else in the business. So for that reason, we feel it's important to make a purchase of a good, robust business class unit again. So you want to make sure, for starters, if you're getting a switch, it's all gigabit now, or 1,000 megabytes. Or if they're saying the numbers on them, you'll want a 10, 100, 1,000. The gigabit is the 1,000 megabyte speed. Switches have had this for quite a while now. Again, business class switches, maybe not as long as consumer, because it's just a lot more behind the technology. So if you haven't got new switches within the last 5 years, you might not have gigabit, and that actually might be just not letting your computers and your server talk to each other as fast as they could. These will do power over Ethernet too. So what that means is if you have phone system that does power over Ethernet, where your phones don't plug into power, they just get their power over the network, and your wireless, your switches can do it too without having to get special adapters for all your devices to make it happen. So what that means is you basically plug your phone into your switch and your phone just magically powers up. Now for the gigabit and for the power over Ethernet, you do need a certain newer type of network cable, but again, those have been out for years as well. So you'll probably want to ask your IT people if you've got that capability. You can do things called VLANs. Now this is getting a little techy and I won't get into the full explanation, but it's just an important thing that when you're getting a network-based phone system or a VoIP phone system, even the one that we recommended, the Digium SwitchVox, is that you're going to want to have your switches set up something called VLANs. Basically makes it that when your phones and your internet and your computers are talking over the network, it keeps their traffic separate. It just cuts down on network congestion, which ultimately will lead to just better voice quality and less voice problems. Business class switches also have expansion modules. The most common type is a fiber. So if you've got to run a cable from real far to real far, you're going to need fiber. Because a normal network cable can, believe it or not, only go so far. There's a hard limit of about 100 meters, and you don't even want to get that far or you'll start having communication problems. So if you've got to run a real far cable, you also need a fiber module in your switch. So you might consider that. We recommend ones that do have that plug-in capability. As far as switches go, we've got a couple different recommendations. The Cisco Meraki on the high end or HP ProCurve are a good middle of the line. They don't quite have all the features and manageability of the Cisco Meraki, but they're still reliable, fast switches. Again, both are business class switches, not ones you'll find necessarily at stores. For making a smart UPS or battery backup purchase, there's some things I want to clarify first. And one of that is, what's the purpose of a UPS? Because a lot of people have the wrong perception on what a UPS is really for. So a UPS is not to have you run without power. It's to have you run long enough to be able to turn your stuff off while you don't have power. They're not to act as generators. If you want a UPS, or if you want to operate while the power is out, that's what you want a generator for. UPSs usually don't have that long a battery life. You can get bigger extended batteries, and you can even get bigger UPSs. But a bigger UPS generally means you can run more stuff off of it, not necessarily longer. Now, granted, you can get a big old UPS and extra batteries and run a couple of things off of it for, an extended period of time. But these servers take up so much power nowadays that we're really not talking again about keeping them up for a prolonged period of time to run while your power's out. It's more for power protection. Please note too that if you go bigger with UPSs, you might require like a bigger amperage on your power circuit. You can talk to your electrician about that. Most circuits are 15 amps. And when your UPS size gets above 1800, you need a bigger electrical circuit on that plug, plain and simple. The real big UPSs, you need something called a 30 amp. So that's one of those big dryer looking twist round plugs. So again, UPSs, we just want to keep the system up long enough to turn them off. We want to make sure that all your networking equipment and servers is on UPSs as well. Commonly, we'll see that somebody has a new internet connection installed, and Comcast or whomever comes in and hooks up all their equipment and then just plugs it right into the wall. Let's make sure that whomever you've had hook stuff up, it gets plugged into your UPSs. Do note, though, it's important not to plug laser printers or other heat-generating appliances into a UPS or any kind of power protection. Those are bad for them. Whenever they turn on, those heating elements heat up, including the heating elements and laser printers. Those can actually cause damage to the UPSs. There's a couple major brands of UPSs out there. The one that we recommend and have, because we've used them again for many, many years and had great luck with them, is Triplite. There's another brand out there, APC, that's also very reliable. They're a big name brand. We recommend Triplite for your power protection needs. So let's talk about printers. I'm sure I'm going to ruffle a few feathers on this one and the scanner slide, but our recommendations for printers is we would strongly urge agencies to, stop doing the local printers. This is a tricky one. Agencies for a long time have had these battles back and forth with all their users. Everybody wants their own printer on their own desk. That's good in some situations, especially for things like accounting people and HR. But our recommendation is, whenever possible, let's start trying to work away from getting a printer on everyone's desk. If you are going to do it, considering laser versus ink, we recommend laser, again because of the production capabilities of laser and the cost. When it comes to MFPs, the multifunctions, printer, scanner, copier all in one versus single purpose, you're definitely going to get better performance and reliability out of a single purpose, as well as better compatibility. If you're in a cloud system, chances are you're not going to be able to take advantage of all the MFP features where you would just a printer and a separate scanner. So it is our recommendation, although we know that it won't happen everywhere, is let's maybe start considering centralizing our printing and having individual printers for a few people that need it. One of the other biggest things is just that lower total cost of ownership. It's difficult to keep the same model of printer on everybody's desk, so you've got 9 different kinds of toner, 3 different kinds of ink. It's just an efficiency thing. Network printers are also easier to maintain. They're easier to set up. So it just cuts down on the overhead for management, which in turn ends up with less interruption for your users. When it comes to buying and leasing, most agencies never really consider buying a large piece of equipment, but we have seen agencies do it with great success, and you will save cost in the long term. Believe it or not, as you can see from our picture here, HP sells very, very competitive lines of even really, really big printers, where everybody usually goes with the Ricoh or the Canon or Konica, those different models. There are other options in those fields. They sell. You can buy those. You can also buy HPs that are that size. Our recommendation are HP laser jets for the overall needs, whether it be the small ones, middle size, or very, very large ones. You can get them with all the same capabilities, and maybe consider buying versus selling as a long-term investment. These things last a long time, and many have expansion modules, so you can plug things in later to give yourself more trays or stacker abilities and whatnot. A final note here, we recommend if you are going to go with a smaller local printer, look on the box. This is usually where you're going to see it. And if you see anything that says host-based printing, let's avoid those. That's basically HP and Brothers' fancy terms for printers without a lot of smarts. All the smarts are built into the software, and what you lose with that, again, is compatibility. It's often not compatible with cloud systems. Usually they're not releasing software updates for newer operating systems for those either, so you're usually stuck with those on the computers that they originally were bought for. When it comes to scanners, we need to try to figure out what we're doing with scanning. Are we going to be doing centralized scanning, or are we going to be doing local scanning? And that ties directly into what are our scanning workflows. Are we doing front end versus back end? When we're talking front-end scanning, that's usually when everything, comes right in and, all the mail is given to one person. That person scans it all in and routes it to somebody else, whether it be in our management system directly or a document management. But that person also might be our central scanner, if you will. Most management systems and document management are built for a combination of front-end and back-end. And in those cases, the centralized scanner is usually a better, more efficient option, rather than, again, giving people their own scanners at everyone's desk. You might think it's quicker to have everyone have their own scanner and them scan a page at a time, but those scanners are usually much slower, they're less reliable, and it maybe makes more sense sometimes to have a scanning workflow where somebody can just put in a big stack of 100 pieces of paper separated by barcodes, and they just click scan and go, and then go sort out the mail. When they come back, 100 scan jobs are done instead of everybody doing theirs individually. Different options for different workflows at the agency, but I want to kind of share the options for those who are still making those decisions. You could also consider network scanners versus local. When I say centralized scanner, I'm not necessarily talking about a network scanner. You could just have a big scanner hooked to someone's desk. But when it comes to network scanners, there are options for those as well. There are scanners that actually plug into your network, whether they be part of your big Ricoh or Konica or Canon or HP multifunction copier printer, or they're smaller network attached scanners. Usually you're going to pay more for them than you would a similar sized dedicated scanner, but you do again have that convenience of having them in one place, not having to have and manage and maintain and keep up scanners all over the place. For scanner recommendations, we strongly recommend the Canon DR series scanner. These are business class scanners. They're not cheap little $200 scanners, so don't. Many agencies are surprised when they see they're a few $100s. But again, we're talking about very high production machines. At the lower end, they have lower volume models that are still going to be a lot better than a cheap, if you will, scanner. The one recommendation we have for agencies is we recommend strongly against Fujitsu ScanSnap scanners, mostly from a reliability, but also a compatibility standpoint with, again, a lot of cloud solutions. There's a couple cloud solutions that have particular scanner software that they say that they're compatible with everybody but Fujitsu's. So we recommend Canon DR scanners. Again, there's a whole line from low volume to super high volume available out there. We're talking about making smart purchases at the agency, but I'd like to throw in a little bit of info about software too. Now that we're gonna talk about software than computers. And the first is free software. I want to give everyone just a word of caution on free software. There's a lot of great software out there. Sometimes the free software isn't free. If you go to a website that that advertises free downloads, but then you see a buy now link or a pricing link, usually what that means is it's not free for commercial use, and you can get in trouble for using it at a business. So just be very careful. Whenever we're asked to install some free software for an agency, we always look at those couple things and also just read maybe their frequently asked questions on their website, or look at their license agreement and make sure that it's really actually free. When it comes to antivirus, again, we recommend not a free solution. It included the one that comes with Windows, that Microsoft Defender. Let's turn that thing off. We also recommend not using multiple products together because they're usually not meant to run together. So our recommendation is Sophos Antivirus. They do more frequent updates than any other vendor, which is why we took a look at them a long time ago, and we've been using them for a long time. But they are also an all-in-one solution. They handle both virus and malware. So you don't have to have two separate solutions that aren't meant to work with each other and work smoothly. And they also offer a great centralized, robust management. That's important because you've just got to keep it up and hopefully not spend a lot of time keeping it up. When it comes to PDF software, there's lots of different things out there, and I'm just going to throw out some quick recommendations on what we see in agencies have success with. So for creating PDF software, we recommend purchasing PDF Factory. There are other softwares out there that are free. PDF Factory has a free version as well, but you just get more out of the paid version. For viewers, we do recommend everybody use the Adobe Viewer, mostly for compatibility on company websites. For converters, there's a great program out there, aptly named PDF Converter. It's pretty inexpensive, and it has a 1 or 2 clicks to convert a PDF to a Word doc, an Excel, PowerPoint, you name it. Very powerful. And when it comes to editing, this may come to a surprise to some, but Adobe isn't the only game out there. There's lots of them. And we recommend a product called PDF Review from Bluebeam. They have all the features of Adobe, plus they're tuned for tablets or touchscreens if you happen to have one of those. And in most editions that they have are price competitive with Adobe, where they're feature rich and a little less expensive. When it comes to operating systems in Office, this is an area where a lot of agencies might not understand what their purchase options are. So you need to know what you're getting edition-wise when you buy them. And I don't mean Pro or Standard. What I mean is OEM or Retailer Volume. OEM is the version that comes with the computer. It's usually half the price. But the reason it's half the price is because legally you cannot install that on a different computer. When that computer dies, you have to throw away your copy. That's why it's less expensive. There's a retail edition, which are actually harder and harder to find now, and that's a box. And you can install that wherever you want. But the catch with that is you're stuck with that version. You can't downgrade if you wanted a previous version for now and then to upgrade later when your software is compatible. Volume license is what you would want if you're going to buy multiple copies or be able to downgrade, then upgrade later for compatibility. volume license you have to buy through a distributor. There are different versions out there too, so when somebody tells you Office is X amount of dollars, they're probably talking about a version. There's Home and Business, Student, Pro, Pro Plus. That's where you're just going to want to look at what programs you're needing. But more important is think about what edition you're going to have. We recommend Volume again for Microsoft Office, and then OEM for your Windows. So let's get into the computers, and then we'll be wrapping up. When it comes to servers, it's time to think about whether we're still buying old-style single-purpose boxes, or we're going to talk about something called hyper-converged solutions. Special fancy term for a bunch of servers in one with a bunch of parts in one that can act as lots of servers. So if you're not sure if your IT people are recommending that, just ask. Are we doing any kind of heavy virtualization or private cloud, if you will, or are we doing hyper-converged? That's what we're doing and recommending and seeing as taking over for the new server realm. Got to have servers with lots and lots of redundancy. Maintenance and warranty are very important. All server warranties are not created equal, and most do offer extended if you're again buying a business class. A typical good server you're going to get 4 to 6 years out of lifespan-wise, and more money does mean a more meaningful life. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get 7 or 8 years out of it, but it's going to be still nice and fast in 5 or 6 years. If you go to a company's website that builds computers online and they're advertising a $1,299 server or an $899 server, just close the page, please. Servers are a big investment, and they need to have a good life for the agency. When it comes to laptops, ask yourself a question: why do we want a laptop? Are we looking to be at a desktop replacement or to travel or a combination of both? There are different machine recommendations for all of those. It's hard to just buy a laptop unless we're answering those questions. More money usually equals smaller and faster. And it's important to figure that you're going to have a slower and or shorter lifespan than an equivalent dollar spent on a PC. With that, depending on what you spend on your laptop, we see them lasting 2 to 5 years. And our recommendations for laptops are Lenovo ThinkPads. Used to be IBM ThinkPads, now they're Lenovo. As far as workstations go, we want a business machine. Again, this is where the cost versus productivity comes in. Faster CPU, more memory, super fast hard drive. Make sure you get ones with those SSD hard drives now. Get a machine with a great warranty. Again, the front page Dell Special usually only has a 90-day warranty, and most people don't realize that until it's too late. Don't forget the peripherals too. Your people are going to use these for 9 hours a day for 4 years. Might want a better mouse and keyboard, and especially a better monitor. Getting a monitor at the store is also not the same as getting a nice business class monitor. Just reduces eye strain. Workstations, we see about a 4 to 6 year lifespan. So I wanted to share with you one last piece. We did a case study a while back on workstations and the cost. And what we found is that a typical workstation, again, being 4 to 6 years, a $400 workstation versus a $1,200 workstation, considering it's maybe 15% slower, consider getting 15% less production out of your people for 4 years because you saved $800. On average, what we'd found using some agency industry resources is cost-wise just for salary is about an $8,000 difference over that 6-year period. So if you're saving a few $100 on a workstation, consider the long-term return on investment of production for your people. Strong recommendation is not to spend under $1,000 on a computer. $1,200 is usually where you're just getting into what a business class machine is going to provide. But again, 4 to 6 years of productivity being 15% more for your users really will add up. So we do thank you for joining us today. I know we packed a lot into our 30 minutes.